Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Going to do a wrap-up video for CEDIA 2022. And I have to apologize, number one, I was only there for 2 days and only partially 2 days because I had to drive back from Dallas to Houston today to pick up my daughter because I'm actually going to the Gorillaz concert in Dallas. And I was trying to make it where I could stay the entire time and she could come up there and meet me, but it just didn't work out. She had a dance tonight. So I had to come back, drive back to Houston. She went to the dance, and now we're going to go back to Dallas tomorrow night. So that cut out some of my time at CEDIA. But it's not a show that is really conducive to my normal coverage where you go into rooms, share a lot of intimate details from the manufacturers. These guys are very busy with doing business with dealers and whatnot. And being a small channel, I don't want to encroach on that time. But also, it's not a show for audiophiles in the traditional sense because it's a lot of AV material. So you ask, well, why do I even go to that? Well, this was my first time going, but I'm going to tell you something, guys. This is one of the tenets of my channel. You know that DSP, room treatments are two things that I bring a lot of attention to. Now, power delivery as well. But probably the most important thing I learned in the hobby maybe about 10, 12 years ago, well, probably even the 90s, is when I really started embracing audio visual content, surround sound, and started to develop skills in how to set that up properly. And quite frankly, when people come over, you know, they're obviously impressed by the GR Research and Extreme and my 2-channel setup. But it's when I play the home theater stuff that people are like, sign me up. You set up my home theater going forward. And a lot of them end up buying the content that I share with them. And so I want to share with you the biggest takeaway for me, quite frankly, from CEDIA 2022 was hearing Never Enough, The Greatest Showman, on that Macintosh 11.6 by 6, whatever, how many channels that had. But that's a song, one of the best songs ever recorded in a motion picture. One of the best performances. Actually, it's lip sync, to be honest with you, if you know the whole story behind it. But it's a phenomenal performance. And while it wasn't the best I've ever heard it in that Macintosh room, what it reiterated to me is I constantly get questions. Oh, why do you need subs if you have $100,000 speakers and whatnot? And that is a fair question for that price. But let me just tell you, whether you got $500 speakers, $50,000, $500,000 speakers, at some point, there's a level of physics involved, and subs and sometimes multi-channel as well, especially if the material was recorded for that format. There's no comparison. Whatever you do, you could spend $1 million on your 2-channel system. It's not going to compete. And that song, Never Enough, in The Greatest Showman, is a perfect example. The orchestra, you try to play that loud on just normal 2-channel speakers, you're never getting the full performance. And then when you add in surround sound to that as well, that is super impressive. That anybody that's into this hobby for music and performances and talent at that level, you know, that is something you're going to appreciate and want your system to be able to do at the highest levels. I'm going to share with you a couple other ones that are, you know, they're deal breakers for me. If you don't have these in your collection for audio video purposes, and if you're not into it yet and you want to get into it, get Andre Pacelli in Tuscany. This is the best group of singers ever put on one DVD. Every performance is just phenomenal. And of course, Pacelli and Sarah Brightman at the end is just worth it alone. But every song on there is phenomenal. And the venue in Tuscany outdoors, guys, this would be a concert you would pay whatever it takes, at least I would, to go see this live again if they ever did this. The other one, Roger Waters, The Wall, must have. I mean, I literally spent a year of my life making this sound the best as possible because it intertwines real life footage, the sound of cars, people talking, people out at a graveyard, you know, so many real life sounds that you are more attuned to. And then you've got instrumentation, and this is so far superior to The Wall on CDs. You'll never go back to listening to it on CDs again, never, after you hear it here. And when you've got the visual combination, he just puts so much into his audiovisual content. It is a must-have. And like I said, takeaway from this show was the, because that's the one I saw. A lot of things where the Ready Player One, and Maverick, a lot of AV content that I filmed, but I can't share it with you because as soon as I upload it to YouTube, they say blocked because all these videos are blocked by YouTube. I can't reshoot them and share them with you. So I apologize for that. And that's another reason why I cut short my coverage, because there's only so much I could do. But let me give you some takeaways from the show, though, specifically. Number one was obviously the Macintosh and Sonos Faber room, and the Trinnov is another key element people overlook. They see Macintosh and Sonos Faber, they think they know that. But Trinnov does a really interesting, using a array mic in different points that allows it to triangulate the positioning of the speaker better as the sound wave goes over that array mic. And they use a software-based DSP and surround sound processing that isn't chip-based, and so it's a little more longer useful life, and people swear by it, and I have to agree that the Trinnov stuff would be worth looking at if you're getting serious about a surround sound system. Another great room that was 2-channel was NBL. As usual, Jeremy did a great job setting up a room within the conference room. Basically, it was all soundproofed if you heard him talk about it, but then he added some wood planks around to give a little bit of reverb that NBL's kind of like. They don't want a totally dead room because it kind of plays off of that. And let me give you a takeaway for NBL. First of all, it sounded phenomenal, as always. But I understand people get polarized by NBL. Certainly the first time you hear it, and you hear a song like the Nils Lofgren drum intro that I played in the second video that I filmed there, people are going to say, oh, that bass guitar sounds a little bit too much reverb based on my point source speakers that I hear. You got to listen to it for a while. Yes, it is different. And yes, it is maybe a little more what people would say is echoey or more reverb because of the reflections and the omnidirectional nature to it. But once you give it a chance, don't knee-jerk say it's wrong because it's not what I'm used to, and you listen to it, it's placing it in space, and then you start to realize that omnidirectional is actually creating more of a three-dimensional image and more of the air around the sound stage, such that, yeah, everybody has different tastes. You still may not prefer it to a point source box, but by the end of the song, I think a lot of people will realize, you know what, if I give it open, that is actually probably more accurate in a lot of ways than the point source box. There's going to be trade-offs and taste profiles that fit omnidirectional versus point source box. But in terms of every other parameter as well, the NBL, detail, dynamics, full range, just beautiful sounding speaker. You pay a lot for it, but you get a lot with NBL. From the electronics to the speakers, everything in that company makes is top notch, and then their room setup was great. It was better than most hotel rooms, and it was just a frame inside of a convention center. The other big takeaway was Wisdom Audio. It's a speaker I own. They were mainly focusing at this show on their AV stuff, in walls, which they're very big on, line source, line arrays, and their technology, planers and stuff like that is, to me, their sweet spot, and they're one of the best at line source speakers. They've been doing it forever. My speakers date back to the 2000s. Now, they do have floor standing still ones that are total arrays for audiophile purposes, and they were using the Sage arrays in the surrounds. And unfortunately, that room was a little bit challenged for doing super dynamic. All the light fixtures were rattling for the bass. They had the high-end, actually DSP pretty good. Usually a lot of these AV demos, it's super etched and super bright and super dynamic for short-term 1-minute demos, but they had it actually muted down a little bit, DSP the way I like it on the top end, but the bass still was not interacting with the room and the rattling and all that as good as it could have. But what was the two takeaways of the sound in that room is that the center speaker was super low to the ground underneath this LED array because you can't put it behind a screen, acoustically transparent screen. That's the one trade-off of the LED display. And let me just jump ahead real quick on the LED display. No black levels. You can even watch some of my videos, or maybe I uploaded to the WhatsApp. When I did play content, I couldn't upload it because they blocked it. But when in between content, it would go to black screen, you couldn't even see your hand in front of you. And with projectors, the light and the black screens on even most TVs are not total black. This LED wall was as impressive as I've ever seen in terms of picture quality. The only trade-off is you can't put any center speaker behind it and make it an acoustically transparent screen. And so it's a little bit harder to say, what do you do with your center speaker? And especially if it's a big screen. Well, I think theirs was 13 feet across, center channel array, a line source by Wisdom that did special DSP to kind of send a curvature of the wave. And they won a CEDIA award for it. And it was super impressive. Takeaway was that, yes, even though the center channel was well below the screen, you couldn't tell that when they were playing the material. So that's a takeaway that I think a lot of people didn't pay attention to. And then the line source nature of surrounds is something that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to. They're so used to these point source boxes elevated in theaters, and it almost always sounds gimmicky, surround sound from, it's cool, but when you're playing music and other things, it's not meant to be like halfway up at the ceiling. Well, with a line array and a line source that goes floor to ceiling more, it covers more area and more realistic to your ear levels. That was another takeaway that separates, line source home theaters from what I think others do not quite as good. But in any case, the real takeaway in that room was that LED wall. You're talking about $100,000, but it replaces the projectors that are traditionally in movie theaters. Pretty cost benefit wise and quality wise, definitely weighs in their factor. Although there are some projector technologies coming out to rival, it's always going to be fighting one way or the other. So those were kind of the main takeaways that I had. I didn't get a chance to talk to a lot of people, but hopefully you got something out of it. The biggest takeaway, though, if you haven't seen or heard The Greatest Showman, Never Enough, play that as loud as you can on your 2 channel. Then hopefully you can hear it in multi-channel with multi-subs and see just how much dynamics you may be missing and how much impressiveness. I did play it on my stacks, which is pretty impressive when you play it up loud, but still nothing is like that visceral impact of a orchestra playing at that level with those level of vocals. Got to see it, guys. Got to get these, and I might be able to convince you. If you do get these, you might start seeing coming to the dark side of the home theater side of audiophilia. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. I'm getting close to 10,000 subscribers. I don't hustle you guys for likes and subscribes, only at the end. But if I get to 10,000, I think I get some new features to with YouTube. So if you are enjoying the content, like and subscribe, and I'll see you back here soon with more.